Welcome to Wines Defined, episode 163. Our wines today are a 2018 Pasanau Nous Priorat and a Barovo Tikveš. Our guest today is Oleksandra Hryhorieva. I think I got that right. She's going to correct me.
It's a new sound that's Ukrainian.
Hryhorieva.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There you go.
Of the Wine Travel Awards. The Wine Travel Awards is an innovative annual global project in the field of wine tourism. WTA gives tools for promoting subjects of enogastronomic tourism. It draws global attention to nominees and partners operating in the field of wine tourism to shine a light on those that are offering the best of the best in the world in wine and food travel. And we're excited to have Oleksandra here today to tell us more. Hi, welcome.
Hi, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me here, for your invitation. And I hope we will elaborate more on the project.
Absolutely. Now tell everybody how to say your name your way.
Oleksandra Hryhorieva.
Okay, there you go.
Excellent. Yes, we are thrilled to have you. I found you on Instagram. I found the awards, and I thought, that is absolutely perfect for our listeners, because I kind of equate it to when people watch the Oscars or the Golden Globes. What I do whenever I see those nominees and award winners, then I say, oh, well, this one I need to go watch because it's won an award. So that's what that's what I'm looking at this interview to be for our average listener, is all those travel award-winning places and people and highlights, so that the average consumer like myself can say, okay, now I can actually apply the best award-winning places to plug in for myself to be able to travel and go there. So I hope our listeners are going to get a great insight into their next adventure, yeah.
I will do my best.
Good. But before we talk anything about travel, we're going to have to taste a little bit of wine. And unfortunately, sorry, Oleksandra, you don't have this wine with you at the moment, so you're going to have to watch as we talk through this. We're going to first look at it. And it is definitely deep and rich looking.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is a Barovo. It is from, I believe it's Greek. It's Macedonia, which is not Greek, but near Greece. And we chose these wines because they are from travel destinations. And everybody is when you see those beautiful pictures of the Greek Isles, it just has you just wanting to place yourself there. And they are known, Greece is, and Macedonia, as being one of the cradles of the wine civilization. So we did choose this one because of that. And it's a Barovo, and it's from Tikveš, I believe is how you say it.
Okay, great. So it is, like I said, very deep and rich looking. It's quiet on the nose. Very, very quiet. Has a little bit of smokiness, flavor, smell to it already. I'm going to go ahead and taste. You ready? Oh, wow. Lots of fruit up on the front. Good, bright cherry style red fruit, but then exceptionally drying. It really completely takes everything out of your mouth.
With an interesting aftertaste. Very, very interesting.
Almost
wine.
licoricey.
Yeah.
Very licoricey.
Okay, so we're going to get back to the wines in just a little bit, but let's first talk about wine and travel and tourism. So enogastronomy is a huge industry, we've learned, and you have your industry, your organization, the Wine Travel Awards, has kind of stepped in to fill a gap to highlight people that are doing it well. So tell us a little bit about it.
Well, it's not only about people, so let's see what Wine Travel Awards propose. I like to compare it to a bottle of wine. So the label of the Wine Travel Awards wraps the whole concept and provides information about all our nominees, which are ambassadors, wine guides, food and wine influencers, wineries, tour operators, so basically everyone who is involved in the wine tourism industry. There are 6 nominations and 2 to 5 categories in each of them. So to complete all the different profiles that we try to gather in this community. Winners are defined in 2 rounds. We have the public voting stage in March, where all wine lovers, wine enthusiasts can visit the website and click the vote button to support the nominee they would like to support. And in April, 5 leaders of each category with the highest amount of public votes proceed to the professional jury round, where 12 wine professionals and experts from the industry of hospitality, tourism, wine marketing, wine communication evaluate their profiles according to the protocol. And here I need to give extra credit to our Wine Travel Awards committee, judges committee, because those are really great people with great experience. For example, Robert Joseph, Nina Basset, Felicity Carter, Master of Wine Sarah Abbott, Dr. Ricardo Nunez, Eric Wolf, Per Carlosson, Stefan Baudet, and others. So this is a great pool of judges that have their input and their word in our community, in our awards. And then I believe that there is a place for everyone in the Wine Travel Awards, from big chateaux that work rather with a closed community through buyers and wine futures, such as Chateau Smito Lafitte, Chateau Lascombe, Chateau Pape Clément from France, to brands that don't have actual location, like Landgut Erben from Germany or 46 Parallel Wine Group from Ukraine, to wine museums and really small tour operators from Armenia or Moldova. So we really cover different profiles, and I think this is what makes our awards also beautiful and inclusive.
Well, and I like one that it starts with people's choice, essentially. So it starts with votes from people who have experienced the services in the nominees personally, and then it goes to a critic kind of thing, or an insiders.
So you crowdsource first, and then you delve down further. Is that how it works?
Exactly.
Is that what we get?
Yes, and it also allows Wine Travel Awards nominees to engage their community. We also involve our audience to the public voting, and I think it's a great informational occasion for everybody, basically.
And it does, because you have such a wide variety of nominees. Like you say, you have the big heavy hitters that everybody's heard of, that maybe have a tasting room capability, but then others that don't, that it shines a light on those providers that maybe you would not have heard of otherwise. So maybe, can you tell us about some that are contributors or nominees in the past that like the Ukrainian one, that maybe somebody hasn't heard of, that people can learn about?
Yes, analyzing the last year's edition, I can say that Moldova, Armenia, Georgia, France as well, and other countries, but basically those were, I think, the most active. It was impressive how Armenians support their nominees in the awards. And for example, among the nominees from Armenia were wine guide program, guide master tour wine program, if I believe it's called like that, which is an educational program for wine guides. Armenia analyzed that there is a huge demand for wine tourism, but guides are basically not certified and trained enough for providing this service. So they came up with this idea to provide a proper education to their guides. It's excellent. Then, for example, Wines of Armenia, which is an e-commerce shop that allows to buy Armenian wines, and the quality is guaranteed through the blind tasting. Or wine Wines of Armenia application, which is useful for anybody who is going to visit Armenia, because it has different updates on the latest events in Armenia in the wine field, or news, or tips what you should visit or try. So you can download this application and use during your trip. There were also wineries and the main institution, Vine and Wine Foundation of Armenia, who also is engaged in developing the wine tourism industry in Armenia. Talking about Moldova, for example, there are lots of nominees, but we had such great wineries as Krikova Winery, one of the, I think, best sellers of Moldova, and the oldest, which has the oldest wine cellars in Moldova. There are lots of inbound and outbound tour operators from Moldova, Waste Travel, Visit Moldova, and Moments and Travel. So who also represent fully Moldova in the awards. From Georgia, we had also two wineries. One is Chateau Mukhrani, built in 19th century, which became a cultural and political place of elites back at that time, and now it preserves this historic part of Georgia. And Shumi Winery, which proposed the first wine tourism experience in Georgia. So it was the first company who proposed this service in Georgia. Well,
we've heard a lot of upcoming things about Georgia, and we just recently, I guess maybe been 6 months ago, we had some Armenian wines, and I was so impressed with those Armenian wines. I can see why it sounds like it's almost one of those emerging region.
It's crazy because it's been there forever.
It's been there forever, but now it sounds like it's using technology to its advantage from what you've just described. So it's getting the word out and letting people know you don't just have to go to Burgundy or Napa. There are other places that are wine country oriented that you could get great values in wines and gorgeous experiences
and tourism too, because they're not in those high demand areas, and so those three that you mentioned, they're interesting and off the beaten path, and that's what I find very interesting is you do get to find those locations that maybe calling your typical travel agent isn't going to tell you about. I really think that's very interesting for the travel conscious person.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, and we are also proud that Ukrainian wineries participated in the awards, because I think Ukraine is even less known for wine growing industry and wine industry as a whole, even though we produced wines for a long time, and we have different regions in Ukraine connected to the wine industry. So among wineries, we had, for example, Beikush winery from the Mykolaiv region, or Chabot winery from the Odessa region. This is incredible because the terroir of Chabot region is very unique. There are more than 20 different varieties are grown there, including Telti Kuruk, an autochthonous variety, and Chabot winery has its mission to preserve this variety and to multiply it. We have Stachovsky wines from the west of Ukraine, Zakarpattia region, and I think it's also beautiful to show the variety of Ukrainian winemaking in our community.
Well, and we did an episode, it wasn't on Ukrainian wines, but it was a former Soviet Union location. And what was interesting was they've been producing wine for years, but because of the nature of the closed off the Soviet Union, it was never exported, and so the wine regions were making it. And it was always
that
just
was
very,
the Armenian
no, it was way back.
Okay, I'll have to think.
Yeah, I'll have to think too. It'll come to me in a second. But what was interesting was they are well known for growing within the area, but not for exporting. And now that open trade was
It
available,
all had to do with when the wall came down in '89. Then it truly
kind of just
the influx was amazing. To be able to get that commerce was really good, and it sounds like that's kind of the similar things that are going on in that region. The wine's always been there, but to actually let people know about it and have access to it, which then brings me to my question. You were saying that our Ukraine is trying to, or it does have these great vineyards and tourism opportunities. What have you noticed the impact of the Ukrainian war is on that aspect?
Well, it's a very heartbreaking question because there are wineries that were destroyed, for example, the vineyards that were destroyed, or wine bottles were stolen from the cellars by the invaders, by Russians. And I think what's the most important in this story that Ukrainian winemakers, they keep their spirits up. They try to find ways to continue their life work, life passion, their wine production, and they are full of different initiatives. They try to relocate their production facilities, or they try to preserve what is left.
I was wondering if there's even theft. I know I read War and Wine, and they were talking about how when the Nazis came in, that the champagne winemakers would wall up its cellars and try to hide their champagne because there was just so much theft. I didn't know if that was also an issue. Not only just...
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and Oleksandra, you are from Ukraine, but you are actually in France right now.
Yes,
So you left. You were not there when the war started?
No, I was not there. I left even before the war started. So now I only follow the news. I try to be in touch with all my friends, with my family. We also have a colleague in our team who stays in Ukraine, and she always tries to relocate to change the locations because she is originally from Kiev, but it's not stable, and it's frustrating, and it's very complicated.
Well, we are very glad that you're safe, and we with the best wishes for those who are trying to make wine and have a lifestyle that's safe in Ukraine.
Thank you for your support, and I wanted just to highlight that even in such a harsh time, we try to present, to introduce Ukrainian wines to the world, and to organize wine tastings. For example, last year at the London Wine Fair, we had the Wines of Ukraine stand devoted fully to Ukrainian wines, and the visitors of the fair could taste different wines from different producers, and now they also even try to import Ukrainian wines to the UK. This year at Provine, I don't know if maybe someone from your listeners is going to Provine, we will organize a tasting of Ukrainian wines there on the third day of Provine, so at the hall number 13 at 4 p.m. So if you are interested.
They're there.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great way to lend support.
Mm-hmm. To go to those events and to purchase some wines from there. So tell us, what the Wine Travel Awards is part of a larger organization. Okay, so tell us a little bit about the structure of the company and what it does in the wine world.
So the company that launched the project is the Drinks Plus Communication Media Group, which is well established all the media in the southern and in the southern and eastern part of Europe. They have been operating since 1993, so now more than for 30 years, and they are specialized in marketing and communication, and at the same time they act like a editorial house, because we used to publish our own printed magazine devoted for wine and spirits, for gastronomy and tourism. But because of the war, we had to stop publishing the printed magazine. It was not bread and butter issue for Ukrainians at that moment. So now we keep our digital version. We have English and Ukrainian version of the media, and we continue working. We publish news. We take interviews. But not to be so sad, we still try to develop new media channels, for example, through the Wine Travel Awards, and now we publish still a print magazine, which is the Wine Travel Awards Guide, an actual navigator of wine tourism experiences and personalities in it. So it's basically the final catalog of all community members, nominees, sponsors, partners. And it is in the printed version and digital version, and we distribute it at all our events and the exhibitions.
So if our listeners wanted to see last year's winners, how could they get a copy of that
printed version?
Well, or even the digital version. That way you won't be using shipping and everything else. Could you provide us a link, and then we can put it in the show notes?
Yes, sure. It's on our website, on both of our websites, Drinks Plus and Wine Travel Awards. But to make it easier, I will share the link, no problem.
Excellent.
Okay,
Yeah, that way people can just go to the notes and hit click, and off they go.
And one thing, when we have the opportunity to talk to someone who's in that wine tourism industry, we like to ask, what are some neat things that are happening, that are up and coming or interesting, or kind of cutting edge in terms of
Other than just going and sipping a glass of wine.
Yeah, gastronomical experiences. What's going on?
Well, me personally, I'm impressed by innovation of this industry, because wine makers, they try to combine so many different fields, for example, sport and wine. So sometimes wineries at their actual places propose experiences, for example, yoga and wine, or bicycling and wine. And for me, first, it sounds like, how is it possible to combine an alcohol and sport? Because usually it goes in two opposite directions.
Yeah.
But I think it's great that they come up with such ideas, or having a picnic in the vineyards and just a friendly chat in a group. When the weather is appropriate, of course. Or sometimes wineries propose their visitors to try to produce wine. So during the harvest, especially to see how the process goes. And I think this is a practical experience also that you can get.
For those people who like a true hands-on style of vacation, they can actually do that. I guess maybe they even have where you could do the pressing or go through, and that would be very interesting to do that.
Good way for them to get some harvest interns.
We've even heard where using the must in spas is become a big thing. Have you heard a good bit about that? The leftover stems and skins.
Like for skin therapy?
Yes, I've heard that there are even some brands that use it in their cosmetics and or propose, for example, in spa that some kind of masks. I've never tried. I don't know, but I think
You're too young to worry about that.
It's high on our list. That resveratrol just splash it all over.
All right, do we want to try wine number 2
Sure,
real
yeah.
quick? All right, so we're going to just take a pause and talk about wine number 2. That is a 2018 Pasanau Nous Priorat. And so it is from Spain, but I believe that's in the upper levels that is close to France, and that's why it has the Nous. It's got a little French in there.
Okay. All right. All right. It is very dark, deep, very, very purple as a Grenache should be.
It's 100% Grenache, yes.
And to me, the fruit, the black fruit really just jumps out. I'm going to go ahead and taste. Oh, yeah. Very jammy. Ooh, I like that. We're kind of suckers for Grenache. So
That is interesting. It's very nice, very fruity.
what is the oaking on that?
I will tell you. It is fermented in stainless steel for about 17 days. Then it's aged for 2 months in French oak barrels.
Very nice. Very nice.
And it's in the larger.
The larger vats.
Yeah. It's not as oaky as
That's
some.
what it seemed more neutral. So that's why I was
Yeah.
anticipating what you just said.
It lets the grape kind of shine versus have
It definitely is that more fruit forward feel of a Grenache. Very nice.
Okay, so that wine pause is now over. We can jump right back into the conversation.
So are you a wine lover too?
Yes, I do love wine, and when I moved to France, now I discovered even more French wine, because before I used to love, and I still love, Italian wines, but when you are in a certain country and you have an opportunity to try wines that are not on the market, for example, in supermarkets or online shops, when you can go to the winery, to the domain, and to buy some wines there, I think it's amazing.
Drink and eat local.
Yep. So in being in Burgundy, you have exposure to some of the best wines in the world. What is there anything that you've had there that you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing?
My favorite is Von Romanet wines, which are quite expensive, but they have this very smooth taste. I think it's very elegant, and sometimes they say it's a very feminine wine, and I love it very much.
Very
Excellent.
good. We always like to get those insider tips on what's good.
So you were saying that one aspect is the chateaus or the wineries themselves, and then this new technology that came up with the wine guides. So those were some aspects of the nominees. And then you also mentioned influencers and writers. Can you tell us a little bit about the personality side?
Yes.
Before we place our
Before we
submit.
Yeah, it's great to have you in our community. So who doesn't know, we invited the podcast and Michelle and Sandy to become a nominee in the awards as well, and it's great to have you in our community.
Oh, that's very kind. Thank you for the nomination.
So regarding the Wine and Food Influencer nomination, we made it free of charge thanks to the sponsorship of Vinhos de la Luz, which is an international group of companies that have wineries in the old and the new wine worlds. So in Spain, Italy, California, Georgia, I believe, yes, and Argentina. And due to Vinhos de la Luz, all wine bloggers, influencers, journalists, writers, even photographers or videographers can
That's
apply.
big. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, some of the beautiful photography and wineries. Yeah, I'm sorry. That caught my attention real quick.
Yes. So they have this opportunity to get nominated free of charge. We have 3 categories there: Author of the Year, Expert Opinion, and The Brightest Journey. So you can pick one of the categories that suits the most to you, and then just simply participate, fill in the registration form, and then your profile will appear on our website in the chosen category. We also try to support our nominees on social media, on our Drinks Plus magazine. So we share their stories, services, their books, sometimes even news if one blogger or influencer visit a new country and they post on their social media some information, some pictures. We can even ask for a comment or a short interview, and we share also on our website to share news of our nominees, and we try to support.
Lifting all boats. Love it.
Yep. So what... once the awards are April, well, March is the People's Choice, and then April is the votes. When is the final revelation?
In May, we already know the names of winners. So last year, we held the Wine Travel Award ceremony at the London Wine Fair. This year, we have a few options regarding the location, so it's still a secret, but we will announce it as soon as we are sure about our choice.
Okay.
Well, that's
Very
just
good.
something for people to continue to look
That's
for.
right.
Exactly
Keep
when
looking.
and where
Stay
those
tuned.
nominations. We know it'll be in May, or the winners.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Did you have something?
I did, and then it left my brain.
So how did you get into wine yourself? I mean, did you always love it? Did you come from Ukraine to do this job, or how did you get where you are today?
So I fall into the category of people who accidentally embarked on the path of the wine industry and wine tourism. This was not my goal per se, although I have always loved wine and preferred it to any other alcoholic drink. But talking about my personal qualities, I'm curious about everything new. I love to learn. I'm persistent, so I think that's what got me to where I am now. I finished 2 master's degrees in international relations and media and communication science. And I already had some experience in the marketing and communication field. But after I finished my studies, I was simply open to new professional opportunities, and I decided to be proactive, initiative, and I contacted directly the Drinks Plus Communication Media Group. So I started there as a freelance journalist at first, and then I was hired for the position of English editor. At that time, we started working at the Wine Travel Awards project, where in less than a year I became the project lead. So my career has been quite dynamic in this company. This is an amazing job where you can discover different wine cultures, stay in touch with great wine and food personalities and companies, forge new collaborations. It's a constant growth. You never stop learning, which is why I also took my first step in learning wine and completed the WSET level 2 in wine. And I guess I keep going. So,
Excellent.
Very
well,
good,
that is
yeah.
that. By the way, how many languages do you speak?
I speak 4 languages: Russian, Ukrainian, English, and French.
Very good. Very good. Well, this has been such a pleasure to have you on. I hope that everyone will follow you. Tell people where they can follow you on Instagram and your website, so that way people that are listening will know where to go for information.
So I'm active on LinkedIn as well.
Okay.
Who wants to follow more maybe professional news, you can find me by my name, Oleksandra Hryhorieva, or on Instagram it's our page of the Wine Travel Awards, or my personal page, which is Sandreva. But I think you can also find me by my name. Yes, please follow and let's connect.
Yep, you'll get all those good pictures from wine tourism and wine.
And if somebody wanted to vote on the Wine Travel Awards, they could, that would be through Instagram would be the best place to go? Or what's the best place to go to place those People's Choice Awards? Or
No, it will be open on the website. So each
Website. Okay, we'll have to put that in the show notes then. Okay.
Each nominee will have the vote button, so you can just vote.
Okay. So for our own self-promotion, once this comes out, go vote for us.
Go vote for us. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, it's been very interesting. And you did share with us that your mother and your sister are still in Ukraine. So we do hope that things go well for them, and that if things don't go well, that they come join you in France soon.
But they are
Right.
brave. I think I wish to all Ukrainians and Ukraine the victory, and I believe that we will have it.
Excellent.
Very
Thank
good.
you
Very
so
good.
much.
Thank you for having me, and have a nice evening or day.
So I enjoyed talking with Oleksandra and hearing some real-time information about Ukraine and how that's really impacting her personally, but also how it's impacting their wine industry. That was a little sad to hear, but it's also very interesting to hear what it, as a whole, is going on in the wine tourism industry.
It definitely is. It gives a different aspect or a different point of view, which is, like you said, was very interesting. Let's go ahead and move right on into our reviews, which, if you have not listened to our podcast before, we review the wines for our personal benefit using a simple rating system of 1 to 5. 1 cork is where you did not enjoy it at all. You would throw it in the kitchen sink. 2 corks is you'd go ahead and finish the glass just to be polite. 3 corks is you found it interesting that you'd go ahead and have another glass to explore a little bit more. 4 corks is, oh, okay, this is pretty good. I think I'd like to buy another glass to try it again. 5 corks is you really, really loved it. You want to buy an entire case.
That is the rating system. All right, so wine number 1 was this Barovo, and it is a Macedonian. Macedonia is in the Mediterranean area, and it is kind of the cradle of civilization, and they've been making wine there for a very long time. What I found interesting about this, I do like to know when somebody does the practices that we like to look for, and they are sustainable farmers. So that was one that piqued my interest, and I like the idea of it being from an off the beaten path for this travel episode. So that's why we selected this one. What'd you think about it?
It's very tannic and very drying. I think it would benefit food. This is one of those where European wines are definitely considered an ingredient in the meal.
I actually found it very interesting, though, and has a very
Oh, well, that wasn't to say it was bad. That
Yeah.
wasn't what my intent was.
it just needed food. Well, what number would you give it?
Maybe a 3.5.
Okay. I find it interesting enough to go back to. I don't know that I would go back to the bottle, so 3.5 is probably a good spot for me as well. I would definitely want another glass because it has such a unique flavor. It's fruity, but then it kind of at the end it brings out a bunch of other
It's like
flavors.
licorice and has some herbs and it's not. And it's almost a little smoky, but not overly. So it's not overly oaked kind of feel. It's almost like maybe even a charcuterie board and some good hard cheeses. I think would be really nice with that.
I find it pleasant. I find it interesting. So 3.5. On
I guess
that one.
for me personally, whenever we talk about having your lifestyle, remember we did that whole series, 6-part series, so you can go back and look at that. One of the things that I try to do is not drink too many very tannic wines. So for me, that's I guess why I was downgrading it to a 3.5. I have a feeling that it is going to be very, very drying, and where this is also one that I would do 2 glasses of water behind versus just 1 glass if I was having more than one. If that kind of gives you an insight more into this.
Into your thoughts. And
Right.
it's also 15% alcohol. So it's heavy on the
Okay.
alcohol and
Yeah.
it's heavy on the tannin. So if those bother you at all, then yes, that would be a consideration for you before making the purchase. So that is good to point out. Okay, so wine number 2 is the Priorat, and that is from Spain. Very interesting area. It is also... it's very gravelly soil. Interestingly enough, it's kind of mountainous, I believe, in the area. So I like to try something. We've done some Spanish wines, but not from this area. I don't believe we've had that Priorat area too
No,
much.
we haven't. So I was real curious when I saw it pop up, which means that's a place I want to travel to.
Yeah. All right. What do we think about it? Let's taste it again.
This one is definitely much fruitier, but it still has the structure of the tannins in the back where it's not that flabby fruity. So I do find this very enjoyable. It is very alcohol. I'm not saying it's out of balance but it seems high in alcohol. What's ABV?
15 again.
Okay. So I think that's what these two are just hitting me high. Lately, I have been drinking very low ABV wines. So whenever I just was sipping on these, it's kind of like, whoa.
They're very heavy. These are heavy wines.
These are
They're
good.
big
These are
wines.
good winter wines, heavy, rich, full body, full tannin. They're the big boys.
I was gonna say, if you like a big boy, this
If you're
would
a
be one to
Napa
try.
Cab lover, I would suggest trying these because
If you
they,
like this, try that. That's a good one.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. I would give this also a 3.5. I'm not sure. Like I said, I think it may be the day too. You just never know. So right now I'm going 3.5.
I would give this one a 4. I do find this one to be a step above in terms of my flavor profile and liking than the glass next to it. So I would have to say a 4 in that regard. It has enough fruit that it does balance that tannin out. It has a little bit
It's a little more fruity.
and it's not as earthy. So, but I just find it enjoyable, and I don't find it. A lot of times, those Spanish, especially the Tempranillos and the Grenaches, can get very heavy on the oak, and this one doesn't have that, and that's what I
This
like.
is very atypical for a Spanish wine. I do find that a lot. That it's also seems to be a lot of American oak. Do you
Yeah.
know how this was oaked?
Well, we talked about it. You asked this already.
Oh, yeah.
it was
French.
stainless and then French.
Because that's the other thing is that I do like some Spanish wines. Do a lot of Spanish wines do the oak. So I'm glad that this does French. It just lends a little bit more elegance or finesse. It just gives a different flavor profile, and you can definitely tell that in it.
It's not as and just because it was stainless first and then went to the oak, it's not as overpowering as some of them. It also is 15.5% looking at the bottle. So
It is
it's
a big boy.
So it's big. So but anyway, sometimes you want a big wine, and sometimes you want to explore.
Everything has
and-
its own place.
Yep, if you want that big, nice steak, juicy steak, and a wine to go with it, this would be really.
What
really
are the
good.
price points?
I don't recall exactly. I think this one. Yes, I do. This one was $26.99.
The first one.
No, wine number 2 was $26.99. This one I don't recall off the top of head, but they were all in the $20 to $30 range, I believe. So not any more than $30, I don't believe. So and that's reasonable, especially now. Now, if I'm looking at, especially for this one, $26.99. If I'm looking for a big juicy, if I'm a Napa Cab lover, that's a steal. If you're used
It is
to,
because instead of spending 60, 80.
yeah. So if you do like those, that might be if you like this, try this one to check out. All right. So we hope that you enjoyed this episode. We hope that if you did love this episode, you would share it with your wine loving or your travel loving friend or family member. And we hope you'll join us next time on Wines to Find.